Would you like to understand why humans love music? Then listen to this whole video because I'll explain it in great, to a degree, depth and behind the psychology of why we love music and why it's such a almost universal passion for the human being. I'm super hyped for this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, how to reduce suffering in life, dating, and all other sort of topics that might be of interest to you. So let's go. Okay, so music, I think, gives us a glimpse of what perfection is. Music sounds good if the notes and tones are fluid, interconnected, and they fit, because anybody could bash on a piano and it will sound horrible. So you need to merge the tones and notes together so that they fit. However, when they fit and merge and flow according to the sort of laws of music, then something magical occurs. You get perfection. And when you create songs, especially like classical music, there's a potential that the song has no flaw. It is perfect. And it's, if you look at sort of complex classical music, you have different instruments that are synchronized and they sort of provide a piece to the song, which gets puzzled together then into this piece of art. And it's perfection. It's perfection because everything fits together exactly how it should. And that's very rare. Almost never occurs in human life apart from art. So music is also a representative of art in general. So why is perfection so valuable and so attractive or beautiful to humans? Well, I just want to say one more thing about the perfection, why it's perfection. Like, it's a bit difficult to convey, but when the sounds merge together, like, if you think about it, every second of the song fits perfectly, because if it wouldn't fit, it would sound horrible. But the song, it works. That's what it works. And it's like it's supposed to be together. And almost nothing else in life is perfect like that. And this is where it becomes interesting with humans. So humans are flawed. They are finite beings. It's the reason why we suffer. We suffer because we are a finite being. We're finite in that we have limited resources, we have limited energy, we have limited brain capacity, we have limited intelligence, we have limited knowledge. There's so much. However, we're placed in a circumstance that is infinite, the universe. The universe can send an infinite number of pandemics, storms, plagues, whatever, your way. But you do not have an infinite amount of resources and energy to defend yourself, and that's why we suffer. That's why we get ill. It's why we die. All right. So suffering is, like, I think, the fundamentally worst thing in life. You can't get anything really worse than that. And unfortunately, it's widespread. Every human suffers. It's sort of an inherent part of our life. And you can explain this with Buddhism's Four Noble Truths, which is the entire religion of Buddhism is predicated on these statements. That is, all life involves suffering. Suffering stems from desires and cravings, and etc., etc. But the key is that all life involves suffering. So you think, okay, well, if all life involves suffering, it probably means something important. It's potentially true, especially if it's called a noble truth, and the whole religion is sort of founded on that belief. And also in Christianity, the savior, the role model in the religion, Jesus Christ, is almost always, I believe, portrayed as suffering on the cross, with his sort of face down, bleeding, bloody, with the crown of thorns on his head. He's always sort of in a state of suffering, and if that's the role model, maybe it means something. I don't think it's by coincidence that he's portrayed that way. So suffering is widespread, and I said it's the worst thing because if you suffer, it's worth destroying everything for. I mean, it's worth, for some people, taking their own lives. It's worth destroying your own environment because you don't care anymore, because your existence isn't worth anything, because all you do is suffer, and suffering is undesirable. And if all you have is undesirable things, then you think the game of life is just terrible. And it's like the fundamental destroyer of life, I think. And so, because that's the fundamental worst case scenario, everything we do is to move away from suffering. Everything we do is to a degree is to avoid it. And you do things to survive. Evolutionary theory says, you behave certain ways in order to survive, to propagate your genes. But in the same, I think if you sort of adapt that perspective, what you're also doing is you're just trying to avoid suffering, because suffering will make you die to some degree, and hence you're also, at the same time as you're trying to survive, but you're also trying to avoid suffering. Logically, I think that's how one can deduce it. Hence, the absence of suffering, or seeking the absence of suffering, is our purpose, and we are primed to do so because it is the fundamental motivator. It's the greatest motivator in life to run away from suffering. Because as I just said, suffering will kill you, essentially, and we want to survive. So anything in life that could offer you the absence of suffering is of highest value to us. And this is where music comes into play. Because music gives us a glimpse of perfection. And what perfection is the absence of suffering. Because it has no flaw. It is not limited. It is infinite. And that's what we want to be. So music gives us like a glimpse of how perfection feels, sounds, looks like. And that's beautiful. People refer to art as being beautiful, and I think what they mean is that art is what they want most, is what they value most. It's the absence of suffering. It is beautiful because it is of highest sort of, it lies at the top of a value hierarchy because it's what you want most. Hence you prioritize it at the top. Yeah. And music also represents what you could be. It represents your highest potential, which is a state of enlightenment, one could say. And enlightenment here is the absence, again, of suffering. And it's what you could be because at the top you have your highest value, what you want most, and depending on what you value, that's what you're aiming for. And because you value it most, it's what you're aiming for. Hence, it's what you could be. You could be in that state of the absence of suffering. So it's your highest potential, your highest goal, your purpose, your objective. It's all in all, it is what you are aiming for. And when you listen to music, you can lose track of time and the consciousness of your finite being is suddenly hidden with a veil in front of your eyes, like a momentary veil while the song is playing. And that is, I think, why people say you can get lost in art, in music, because one could sort of adapt the perspective and say that it's kind of, I don't know if it's a drug, but it's like a fix to your suffering. It's a momentary, temporary fix to your suffering, or at least the consciousness of your suffering, which in some ways is sort of the foundation, or it's the source of your suffering, is that you're aware. And that is deeply argued by the story of Adam and Eve, as they started suffering as soon as they became conscious. So maybe a reduced consciousness would also reduce suffering. And music gives you this sort of you can sort of take a step outside of your body, not feel the pain, and enjoy that. And that's why it's beautiful. So, in conclusion, we love music because it gives us a momentary feeling of the absence of our suffering. And because suffering is horrific and deeply, foundationally the worst thing, whatever is an antidote to it is hence the most valuable thing. And that's why we love music universally, let's say, or across the whole globe. So please give it a thumbs up, this video, if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about these sort of different perspectives on self-development and how to reduce suffering in life. Thank you for listening.